Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Breaking Orbit podcast. I'm your host, Frederick Douglass Bussey. Breaking Orbit is the only podcast that teaches you how to discover your superpower so you can excel in business and in life. Today's episode, we're going to talk about why having really means letting go. Let's go. On Breaking Orbit, we talk about how to discover your superpower, how to tap into your zone of genius, to be able to create an extraordinary life, to create extraordinary results in your business and in your relationships, everywhere in your lifetime that you can. One of the biggest challenges that I find when I'm working with entrepreneurs, when I'm working through my own stuff in my own business, is the idea of having more. I remember a conversation I was having with a good friend of mine, Adam Meadows, and this was during the pandemic. And one of the things that came up in that conversation was just that the word more. And I said something that I've kind of revisited time and time again over the past few years, which is simply the idea that more is the most dangerous word in the dictionary. The most dangerous word that people can ever utter is more, because there is this balance that we're all wrestling with. And here's the challenge. The challenge is battling between having more and wanting more. And the more that we see that's out there, that we imagine that other people have, that other people are, versus the more that we lack in terms of material things, in terms of character or makeup, in terms of talent and belief systems about ourselves. And one of the most challenging things about having or wanting more is simply the fact that more is not a finite thing. And so because of that, more is more of a feeling. It is an emotional construct. It is the idea that there is a gap between what we have and being complete. And so in reality, what we are desiring is this feeling of completion, this fact that we have enough. And yet, even when we have enough, we all oftentimes find ourselves having a desire for more. And so you can look in your business sometimes and you can say, man, if we just had a little bit more revenue, if we had more customers, if we had better leads, if we had more impact, if we had more freedom, whatever the case may be, the thing that's always attached to that thing is more. And more has to be quantified. And very often what we don't do is quantify it. We don't put a specific finite number to it because no finite number can ever satisfy what you don't need. My coach, Rich Lippman, always uses that phrase. He says, you can never have enough of something that you don't need. And because of that, having more never gets you to that point where you have enough. Wanting more never gets you to the point where you are enough. Wanting to be more, etc. And why is this important? Because anytime we are dealing with or wrestling with this idea of lack, this idea that we are in this state of not enoughness, then whatever we are chasing to satisfy that thing will always only be temporary, because there will never be enough if we are always in need of more. Many of us wrestle with this thought time and time again, right? And it often comes from this place of believing that we are insecure in who we are, or we have been told that we had to be something in order to be worthy of being validated, of being accepted, of being loved, of being recognized, seen, heard. And so when you're facing that challenge, and it is a story or a construct that you are wrestling with time and time again, you are going to face the challenge of having to figure that out. How do I deal with this feeling of wanting more, wanting things to be better? And it doesn't mean that they can't be or that they shouldn't be, that we should never be longing for that extra degree of improvement, that extra oomph, that margin in our lives. I talk a lot about that these days, about how we can have more margin, because most of us are living so close to the edge, right? And here's the challenge with that. The reason why we feel like we are longing for more often has to do more with the things that we're holding on to than the things that we think that we lack. Why is that the case? Because when you're holding on to certain beliefs, when you're holding on to certain longings that you have, when you are holding on to certain hurt or trauma, or when it has a hold on you, you will find yourself in a place where you're always chasing, always trying to repair, always trying to fix something that isn't broken. But we believe that it is, and therefore we keep pursuing the thing that we think is going to fill that hole. And what happens when we let go, when we're able to let go of those beliefs, we're able to find the truth about who we are and what we're capable of, what we're capable of building, what we're capable of, how we're capable of leading other people, how we're capable of leaving them in our presence. And this sounds almost too good to be true, that you would let go of certain things, but it really comes up in the case of forgiveness. I'm going to do another episode where I talk a little bit deeper about this, but we often find over and over again is that this concept of forgiveness really hinges around a word called deserves. And we believe that people should only be forgiven if they deserve it, if they have earned the right to be forgiven. And so if someone has done us wrong, if someone has committed a crime or an atrocity against us, if they have traumatized us in some way, we feel as if we have to hold on to or reserve the right to forgive them based on their deservingness to do it. In the book, Breaking Orbit, I talk about the fact that you have to learn to forgive as a prerequisite for discovering your gift. It's the third key to discovering your gift. But the reason why that's so important is because there is a flow that happens. Think of it as a hose that is attached to the faucet outside your house. And so you want the water to flow through it so it can water and nurture your yard. Say that 3 times. You want the water to flow. And the water is a source of life. It is a thing, right? And we are, if you will, the hose. But imagine that there's a kink in the hose and it's locked up, right? And we're yanking on the hose, but we can't get the kink out. And we're upset because it can't flow out, but we're also upset at the kink. But we won't take the time to unkink it. Now imagine that we look at people as that kink. The ones that have done us wrong. They are keeping us from getting everything that we want. We can't get the water out of the hose. But we don't take the time to release the kink, release those people from their obligation of having done us wrong. And the idea that people have to deserve it focuses on them and them taking the next step versus us having the autonomy to be able to release that so that everything that we need can flow through our lives. This is a challenging concept because in a meritorious world where you can earn things on your own right, the person that we are often struggling to forgive is ourselves. And so we are the ones that are holding ourselves back from being able to do those things because we're holding on to things that we don't have to. So as a leader, there are often times when you feel inadequate. There was a failure that you had in the past. There is a fear that you have of success, whatever the case may be. And you're holding on to that thing. And until you let it go, you won't be able to step into your full superpower, into your full light and genius and brilliance. And so because of that struggle, you find yourself time and time again putting that pressure back on other people to validate what you're doing or to blame them. And we do this in many subtle ways, right? If, for instance, in my relationship with my wife, she brings up an issue and I say, you know, it's an issue that maybe she feels like she has with me, but I turn around and put it back on her, I actually create now more tension and conflict. But when I can accept the fact that it's possible that this thing is something that I need to resolve, or I can take ownership of my part of it, it now releases the flow for there to be more reciprocity and forgiveness and reconciliation. And if you want to think about it in this terms, we are all seeking harmony and resonance with the universe, resonance with our gift, resonance with the thing that makes us special and powerful in this world. But when we are at odds with that, we create dissonance and a disconnection. We basically put a kink in the hose between our superpower and the results that we want, the outcomes that we want in our lives. And until we are willing to let go of those things, we'll never be able to have what we need to have or want to have in our lives. Each and every one of us is so incredibly created, has so much genius, so much power, so much love to share with the world. In my devotion this morning, I was reading the text that talks about hiding your light under a bushel. And in this text, it talks about the fact that when you keep something hidden, you no longer have, the more light that you shine, the more light you are given. So the more that we use a thing, the more that it expands. And the more that we hide a thing, the more it contracts. I don't believe that our gifts are ever taken away from us, but I do believe that the power that flows through and from the gift can be greatly diminished when we refuse to allow it to flow, allow it to shine. We are born with that light inside of us. As a leader, as a creative, as an entrepreneur, we all have this light as a human being that is meant to be shared with others. And many times what we are doing is holding on to the things that cover that light and allow it to shine out and allow it to flourish. And the results show in our relationships, they show in the outcomes in our businesses, they show in the things that we're doing. So when we are failing in that regard, and I can speak to this as a testimony, that when I am not releasing the things that I need to let go of, resentment, anger, disappointment, trauma, whatever the case may be, that creates a blockage to flow. And so the light that needs to come out, the water that needs to pour out, all the things that I'm meant to show up most powerfully and to be and do most powerfully fade away. It sounds like a weird thing to talk about on a business podcast or a personal development podcast, but this is actually the core of who and what we are. Why we're doing what we're doing is because we are not here for ourselves. And we often reverse the process because we live in a world that is selfish and self-centered. We are taught to focus on ourselves, get all that you can for yourself, because in a scarce world, a world of scarcity, a world where we do not believe there are enough resources, where we are told constantly that food is dwindling and oil prices are going higher and that the stock market is going to lose you money, or maybe you can gain money, but you've got to get in now. This idea that you're always chasing more because there's not enough is actually counterintuitive to the idea that we are born enough, that we are born in abundance, and that we're born with the ability to create any and everything that we need, no matter where we are. And all we have to do is allow it. That if you just let go, everything you want, everything you could desire, everything you need is already within you, is already around you, is already waiting to be connected to who and what you are. Your dreams, your goals are already fulfilled. We just have to allow it to flow. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments. Drop them below if you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn. watching this on YouTube as well, like or subscribe to the channel. And hopefully this is valuable for you in your journey as well. We'll continue to break down how we can break orbit, how we can unleash the greatness within us by tapping into that gift, that superpower that we are all destined and created with. My name is Frederick Douglass Bussey. As always, ever forward.